Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. It's been a little while since I've done a pickup video, but this is everything that I got for the first month of 2024, January. Quite a bit of variety here, some really exciting things to show off, so rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. First up, I actually have a fanzine. I don't get these very often, but this is for also kind of an oddity for my channel, but this is for a mobile game, one that I enjoy. I haven't played it actually in a long time, but I do really like the characters. It's very much my aesthetic. So this is an Onmyoji fanzine. I think it's A Thousand Demon Parade is the title of it. I can't quite remember. Let's see. Doesn't matter really, but it's a mix of artwork and then obviously fic as well. Well, not obviously, but this is a mixed fanworks zine, so we do have a whole bunch of different stuff. I really like this particular game because it draws a lot of inspiration from Japanese folklore. And the character designs are really nice. Plus, it's like a pretty well-balanced mobile game if you are interested in these sort of, I guess, gacha style games. Yeah, I, as said, don't really buy fanzines that often, but this one was one that I was interested in, and yeah, it's a nice little thing. We have some art books. The first one is a rebuy for me. I have the Japanese edition, but I also bought the English version, like with the first volume. This is Scribbles Volume 2, Kaoru Mori's art book. This is black and white sketches in her beautiful style. A lot of variety there. A lot of very sexy women. A lot of really interesting character designs. And look, even some animals. Oh, why do I always find the sexy ladies? I mean, this is obviously like Kaoru Mori, so always going to be sexy ladies. But I always seem to find like the nudity pics. I just must have some kind of luck, I guess, when it comes to that. Anyway, fantastic art book. I already own the Japanese wideband edition, which are larger than these books. But I do like the fact that these editions are in the same trim size as Yen Press's other Kaoru Mori releases, namely A Bride's Story and Emma. So yeah, I still own the Japanese releases because they are a larger trim size, but they are paperback. These are hardcover. Yeah, and I enjoy Mori's stuff so much that I don't mind owning this a couple times. It's some beautiful works. Definitely pick it up, especially if you're an artist. I think she really captures. She's just phenomenal at the human form specifically, but also with fashion and clothing and drape of fabrics. Like, there's just so much that she's so good at. So definitely one to check out if you are yourself an artist and want to find some like artistic inspiration. Yeah, Kaoru Mori is phenomenal. Art book I got this month is, of course, Ryokokui's Daydream Hour. This was released, I believe, same day that the final 2 volumes of the manga was released. I adore this series. Fantastic fantasy comedy. Very popular anime being released right now. Haven't actually started watching it, but one of my favorite series, one of my favorite fantasies, like dungeon crawler style fantasy series. And yeah, Kui is another just phenomenal artist. Definitely check out her work if you haven't. And yeah, so glad that we did get an art book for this particular series, because this was another creator who, like actually with the previous volume, so for anyone who doesn't know, Delicious in Dungeon and A Bride's Story are both in the same magazine. Harta, which used to be called Fellows. I think it has a new name actually now. But they are contemporary, right? They ran in the magazine at the same time. Obviously, Delicious in Dungeon has finished. A Bright Story has not. But as part of like magazine bonuses, every so often Harta, nay Fellows, nay whatever it's called now, puts out like small booklets of illustrated works from various creators. So a lot of the Scribbles content was originally released in like single booklets. And in the same way, Ryokokui had single booklets of collected art pieces called Daydream Hour, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's so nice to get some of the collected, having all of that collected plus additional pieces in this art book. Because man, oh man, those specific little booklets, freebies were impossible to find in the secondhand market. Scribbles less so. I personally was able to find pretty much the entire set up until like 7, which was the most recent when I was doing so. But yeah, Daydream Hours were very, very hard to get your hands on unless you bought the magazine as it came out or when it was new. So yeah, really, really happy to have this for myself personally. I actually got, very exciting, I actually got a care package from one of my favorite small publishing companies. I had ordered some of these books previously, but just due to international shipping and sort of things, they hadn't been released to me. There were some other pre-orders in that order that haven't yet been released yet, and so there's just like a couple different things. But I was contacted by the owner or the head of this publishing company, who I'm also quite good friends with. I'd also done some quality assurance and QA work for a lot of their publications now, actually, at this point. And so he offered to send me not only the books that I needed, but also some additional books, which was very, very kind. So, yeah. I now have a much larger collection from this publisher than I did previously. Again, not because of not wanting them, but just because of international kind of shenanigans. But I got 4 books, 4 releases from Starfruit Books, and also specifically their Blood Orange horror imprint. But first and foremost, we'll start from the smallest, shortest book. That is Cheiko Sho by Momoto Makiru and Fukumimi Noboru. This is a 16-page, very explicit doujin comic. Fun, funny, very much about the sexcapades of a young woman called Cheiko, or a girl called Cheiko, and just how her just being horny like all of the time, and her growing up and still being horny and just being, horny. So not, not super duper long. It's only 16 pages, but a lot of bang for your buck. It's very fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's one of those things that is like quintessentially doujin. I really enjoyed this one. And this one was one that I actually did pre-order and just hadn't gotten for a little while. The next one, Now, I don't remember if I've read this one or if I did QA for this one. I don't think so. The next one is part of their horror line, and I haven't actually read it yet, but I am looking forward to it, and that is Wonder House of Horrors by Miyako Kojima. This is a collection of horror short stories by Kojima Sensei. I also got a postcard, which is really wonderful. I love this style of classic horror. It's so fun, and I just love the expressions of it. I am so glad that we have such a robust indie horror publishing scene now, thanks to Starfruit Books. I already own their The Town of Pigs. I actually did some QA work on a couple of their upcoming horror comics, including their newest one that has just been released, Panorama of Hell. So just lots to look forward to and lots to enjoy. Really, really worth checking out if you are a horror fan. And yeah, support Starfruit Books because they are fabulous. The next one is another one that I pre-ordered and was interested. Well, actually, the last two I pre-ordered, I believe. But this one I was kind of most excited for, namely because I had read some manga, again from Starfruit Books, from the same mangaka, and really enjoyed their stuff previously. So I was super excited to get some of their stuff in print. And that is Not All Girls Are Stupid by Minami Kyuta. Again, this came with a postcard of the front cover this time. This is a collection of short stories about various young women and sort of just the terrible relationships that they're in, or not in, as the case may be, because as the title says, not all girls are stupid, and if a guy tries to screw them around, then they're not going to take that. They say, oh no you don't, and decide to make better decisions. Doesn't mean they always make the good decisions, but they do make better decisions. They're not stupid. They learn from their mistakes. And I loved this book. This is fantastic. Really, really worth reading. And I just adore Minami Kyuta's stuff. If you haven't read it, I really highly recommend Pop Life, which is a 2-volume digital-only series from Starfruit Books. 2 volumes, I think, or it might be 3, but I'm gonna hazard that it's 2. Honestly, that is some of the best comics I've read and well worth reading. Yeah, I cannot wait for more Kyuta in English, hopefully more in print. Definitely check this one out. And last but certainly not least is actually the first volume in a 3-volume series. And I've actually read this one. This is a pretty fun and interesting, little sci-fi, kind of sci-fi romance. This is Young, Alive, in Love by Daisuke Nishijima, Volume 1. We also have another postcard here. But this is the story of a a couple of teenagers who have grown up in a city where there are 3 large towers that are always like billowing smoke, reactors. They're powering the city. And our main character, our main male character, he is very conspiratorial and is very conscientious about the hazards that these billowing large reactors seem to be having on the town. But one day he runs into a girl who he discovers goes to his high school, but he's never really seen her before. And they're chatting a little bit about this kind of, large secret that all the adults are hiding from these teens. And the energy is so bad coming from these towers that she as someone who is spiritually sensitive, pukes all over him. And so they decide to go together and try to figure out the truth behind these towers, and then actually they're young and alive and kind of evolve into being in love. So it's sort of a, you know, it's the rose-colored high school experience in this town that isn't necessarily great. And it's a very much a teen romance, like us against the world. There's something that the adults aren't telling us, and they think we're just stupid kids. It's really sweet and a pretty fun time. Again, very, very much something that is within this like indie underground comics. Like this isn't gonna really appeal to people who are wanting the next Shonen Jump hit, but it is definitely one worth checking out. And yeah, really, really wonderful to see some longer titles as well from this particular publisher. So yeah, those were my 4 books from Starfruit Books. I thank you so much to the team from Starfruit Books for sending those to me. I am really looking forward to getting more of your books because you do have so many exciting releases and many that I'm really, really excited for. So we have a one and done volume. This is sort of a, I guess in Japan, this is what they would call a fan book. But in English, not so. This is the Fullmetal Alchemist 20th anniversary book. This has a collection of like 4-koma and various like odd event manga and extra little interviews and character pieces and artwork and stuff. That's all related to the Fullmetal Alchemist franchise and 20 years of the franchise that weren't like really tied to the main story necessarily. We get all of the, I'll flip through it, but you can see some actual commentary from Arakawa Sensei. There's comics here. There's just like fun little bits that would have been part of specific releases or cafes, events, things like that. Later on in the book, we get stuff that's specific to video games, which again, some were brought to English, some were not. Yeah, as again, self-proclaimed major dedicated lifetime fan of Fullmetal Alchemist, this one, it's in the style of the Fullmetal editions of the manga, and it's nice to have all those little extra exciting little bits and pieces collected in one book. Yeah, I mean, again, this is not necessarily something that's a must-have for every manga fan around, but if you are a fan of Fullmetal Alchemist, I do think it's worth checking out. Next, we have ongoing manga. The first is the only quote-unquote standard trim size manga that I have. This is a hugely popular ongoing manga, one of my favorites. I'm not caught up to the Jump release, but it is one that I do plan to catch up on, and I will continue to buy in physical volumes, and that is, of course, Tatsuki Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man. This is volume 12, which is the first volume of part 2 for this series. Volumes 1 to 11 was part 1 and was fairly self-contained. Part 2 has a time skip, I believe, 1 or 2 years in the future from the last part of part 1. It's been a few years, if not a year. And now we have sort of a new main character. I'm sure like everybody knows at this point, but I don't really want to get too much into it just because I do think that Fujimoto's works are just more enjoyable if you're there along for the ride, if you're not expecting and anticipating all of the crazy fun, like off-the-wall twists and turns that happen in the manga. I feel like if you are aware of everything going on, then sometimes it can lose some of the effectiveness of the punch of it. And that's just really, like, that's the fun of Fujimoto's works. His manga really feel like a, you know, a schlocky, bad action movie. You know, not even B-list movies, but like D-list movies. The stuff that you can tell he just adores. And part of the fun is never knowing what to expect, right? And sometimes it's just plain bad, but sometimes it's just off-the-wall fun shenanigans. And Chainsaw Man, as well as the rest of Fujimoto's works, are just, they just embody so much of that, and I love them. I don't really need to convince anyone to read Chainsaw Man. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. That's all well and good. It's so popular that almost everyone has tried it at this point, and you would know where you sit on that like-dislike ratio. But I adore this series, along with like a handful of other similar vibe Jump titles or Shueisha titles, maybe. This and like Akane Banashi, which is not quite similar vibe, but Dandadan is the one that is also very much in this wheelhouse, are my favorite. I just adore those series, and they're just, all three of them in very different ways are very like oddball, off the wall, and that's what makes me love them so much. They're just damn good comics. But yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Definitely read Chainsaw Man if you haven't, or at least give it a try. It's available on the Jump app and website and all of those things for free, or for the very low price of like $2 a month or whatever the Jump app is nowadays. Yeah, hugely worth it, and I just, I'm so glad that we're getting more Chainsaw Man. Truly, truly so glad we're getting more Chainsaw Man. Next, for ongoing manga, we have Volume 2 of Nina the Starry Bride by Rikachi. This is a fantasy, or like a royalty romance shoujo. Shoujo? I think so. It might be a josei. About a girl called Nina who has been brought into the palace to replace one of the crown princesses, who was raised kind of separately from and out of the eye of the public, separately from the royal family and out of the eye of the public. So she's been brought on so that the royal family can maintain a political marriage between themselves and a neighboring country, which is, nobody knows that the original princess has died except for her older brother, who's old prince, obviously, who's the one who finds Nina as a replacement. But very quickly, the two of them grow very close, and quicker than I expected. Their relationship really develops at quite a rapid pace. I said with the first volume that I wasn't like 100% sure whether or not I'd keep reading this one. I'm still not like a million times convinced, but I did enjoy this volume. I thought this volume built off of the first volume very, very well. I said again with like the first volume of Nina the Starry Bride that I didn't dislike it, but I thought that I'd give it some time to grow on me, in the same way that like I'm aware that Yona of the Dawn, which is one of my favorite series of all time, doesn't necessarily have the strongest first volume, and I think some of these titles do need a little bit of breathing room maybe to find their feet. That's not to say that this series started poorly or anything, but I think it takes a little time sometimes for young, like teenage girl protagonists to, one, be established, but then two, establish themselves in a way that fits within the genre but isn't frustrating, like for their true personality to come out. And that was very much the case with Yona. as said, I really enjoyed this second volume. I thought it was a great continuation from the first volume. I'm very surprised at how quickly the relationship between these two on the front cover developed. We're left with like a pretty major, but kind of expected cliffhanger with this at the end of this volume. We're also introduced to the other male lead. I don't want to necessarily call him the rival character, but I guess that is what he is, like the romantic rival character. But at this point, I'm sure he will get some development, and we will learn the reality of everything. But at this point, oh dear, he feels like a lot of red flags. But I am expecting him to be shown in a different light in due course, and all of our initial expectations to be challenged thusly. Yeah, but regardless, I did like the second volume. I will give it another volume, and as said, if it just continues to keep being good, then I will continue reading it. As said, this one is one that I've seen compared a lot to Yona. I wouldn't necessarily say in like the plot, maybe? I don't know, because I'm truly only 2 volumes into it, so maybe there's a lot more going on. But it reminds me a lot more of like what's that particular series? Dawn of the Arcana. That's what it's reminding me of a lot. And I like that series. I like that series more than maybe I ever expected to when I first read that series. But yeah, it's reminding me a lot of that title. So if you like that title, which you should because it's a good series, you should maybe check this one out because it's got similar vibes. Last, for the quote-unquote normal manga, we have a series that I love. I highly recommend people to try it. I haven't read this volume yet, personally, but I love this series. It's not for everyone, and I always do say that, but if you are enjoying some of the other fantasy series coming out right now, I do think that you should check this one out. This is Drifting Dragons by Taku Kuwabara. This is a fantasy food manga about a group of what are called Dragoneers, who travel on a blimp basically, and hunt dragons that are impacting human society. But which is why I always say the caveat, like this, I've said it before, that this series draws a lot of parallels, maybe, or the act of dragon hunting draws a lot of parallels to historical real life whaling. And if that is something that you makes you uncomfortable, especially because Japan still has whaling issues, then I 100% understand why you wouldn't want to read this. It's not everything is made for everyone, and that I think is a very valid criticism of the work. I will say that, as I've always said with this particular series, I do think that it falls more in line with something like Golden Kamui, where it's about the holistic act of hunting, hunting as part of population control, and then using all of the animal as a way to respect that animal. That's what our main characters, at least this major group of Dragoneers that we follow, that's their stance and the way that they conduct their business. It's also like a food manga. It's pretty much if Witch Hat Atelier or Witch Hat Kitchen, right, which we've just gotten in English, and Golden Kamui had a baby. It also has very similar art style to Witch Hat Atelier, or also like Noska. A lot of very similar settings to and visual cues to Noska. Yeah, I really like this series. I've liked it for years. I definitely think people should try it. It's one of those series that initially started digital only from Kodansha and then made the jump to physical release. Namely because it did have an anime, which is on Netflix, which I've heard is terrible. It's a bad CGI series, a bad CGI adaptation, I should say, which is a shame because, as said, this series has gorgeous artwork. I'll show you some, actually. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and the characters are fun, and there's a lot of real love for the world that it lives in, especially this kind of steampunk-y fantasy world with dragons. The other one that it reminds me of, if we're talking Ghibli, and blimps, is Castle in the Sky, Laputa, which is also very good. So, you know, maybe check it out. It's got good vibes, even if it is about hunting and killing animals. It's not in a way that it's reveling in death. It's more in the reflective way of how humanity impacts the environment and the animals within the environment, and how we can show our respect to our place in the ecosystem of the world by eating them in a respectful way. Manga. Also the only BL manga that I got this month, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't one that I was super duper excited for. This is volume 9 of Cherry Magic, 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard. This is volume 9 by Toyota, not Toyota, Toyota. Currently has an anime airing, haven't watched any of it yet. I see clips of it floating around social media and stuff. So happy it's getting an anime. It also has a lovely live action series for any of you also wanting more Cherry Magic content. I read this the day that I got it, and which is what I always do whenever I have a new volume of this. I love this series so much. These characters are so sweet. I'm not that invested in the side couple, but they're fine. It's these two. These two are main couple. I am so happy for them. I cannot wait for volume 10 because big things are happening, and I want to read it and then hug them and believe in love. Yeah, this is a fantastic series. If you like fun queer love stories that are like initially don't necessarily take themselves so seriously, but at the same time is a really lovely, serious and nuanced look at LGBT relationships, and also just like relationships full stop. And you don't mind a kind of a goofy title. It's so sweet and just wonderful, and it's so good. Anyway, yeah, Cherry Magic. If you are reading any BL, I have a list of like my favorite stuff, and this is certainly extremely high on that list. Yeah, check it out if you haven't, and even just check out the anime if you haven't, because it's well worth engaging with, and it's just really joyful, and just is good vibes, fun, good vibes. I have a light novel. I haven't read this one because I still have 1 or 2 of other volumes before this to read, which just tells you that I'm very behind on my light novels. But this is volume 4 of I Swear I Won't Bother You Again by Reina Soratani, with illustrations from Haru Harukawa. This is a second life story about a girl who, in her first life, was executed for crimes against her sister or something. She was executed, or I guess, I don't know if she was executed by him. I think so. By the boy that she was in love with, who was in love with her sister, who was the one who had accused her of doing all these horrible things. And she just wasn't having a good time in her first life. She's a very bitter and jealous person. But with her second life, she's made the decision to just kind of avoid all of that. She recognizes that she recognizes in herself that she was in the wrong. But through her self, or her inner monologue, and her dialogue about herself, it becomes very obvious that, man, this girl, one, is just like actually majorly depressed. Two, has been abused pretty much her entire life. And that truly the quote unquote bad behavior that she had in her first life was her struggling to get people to recognize her as a person at all. And she made a lot of very bad decisions in her first life, but she did it out of desperation for someone to accept her and to love her. And now with the second volume, or with the second chance at life, I should say, she's kind of given up on that. She's decided, like, I'm not going to... It's all my fault, and I don't need to worry about it, and everyone's life will be better without me, and so I'm just going to live my life in as undistractful as possible, and everyone will be happier, and then I'll just send myself to a nunnery and live my life there, and it'll be a peaceful life. But little does she know that actually a lot of people do care. Not her family, although maybe her family, but actually she does have people who care about her that she didn't recognize the first time around, and she was searching for acceptance and love in the wrong places because she was just so blind to affection at all, because of how she'd been abused. I love this series. It sounds like such a downer, and that first volume, oh my god. But man, I read the entire thing, which is not like super duper long. It is a light novel, but like, say, give or take 300 pages. But I read it like in one night, pretty much in one sitting. And yeah, I really like the character dynamics here. I like Violet, who is our main character. And I just like her dynamic with all of the characters, including like the prince, who was the one who killed her, and also her sister, but namely, I guess, the actual male lead of the series, which is her childhood best friend. It's good. I like this series a lot. It's one that, like, I like villainess, second chance sort of stories. A lot of them are very heavy on the comedy, which is not a bad thing. But if you're wanting one that isn't just like comedic and full of like a girl being completely blind to all of her male suitors who are falling over themselves for her to recognize them, and all of her female suitors tripping over themselves for her to recognize them or acknowledge them. That's not what this is. I would say that the character herself is very much like the main character in My Happy Marriage. Very similar kind of self-talk and doubt and kind of history of abusive family making them feel worthless, which is not like maybe the most fun vibes to start a story with, but I do think that in both those series, but this one in particular, it does handle that very well. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just written this way, but also the translation efforts from the Seven Seas team. This is such a digestible read. It is so easy to read. Yeah, so definitely check it out if it sounds like your thing. If you're wanting a shoujo, I think it's a shoujo light novel with a really interesting, and I don't want to say fun, but like I really enjoy it. And if you like this style of light novel, check it out. Certainly not least, I haven't even opened this yet, but I will get around to it. I got a Danmei this month. This is from Via Lacti, so I don't often get stuff. Well, I do have quite a few of their books, but this one was one of their actual website releases. So it's a 2-volume release, although the website also has like a slipcover for both of them. That is Salad Days. And I couldn't even, by Jing Shui Bian, Mugeng, I believe. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly. I don't know a huge amount about this series. I believe it's a romance between a boxer and a ballet dancer, or a ballerino. We have art cards and stickers, and yeah, that has someone boxing. Looks like a ticket stub as well. Via Lacti does do some really good extras. I'm always very appreciative of that. And then we've got, looks like a little wedding charm with our, I presume, our main characters. That's cute. As I said, I don't know anything about this series, aside from it's a romance between a boxer and a ballerina. And, yeah, I mean, what else to say? I haven't read it. I can't speak to it. I know it's very popular. I presume it's very gay. And I look forward to reading it. It's one of those titles that like people are very excited about when it was announced, and it's nice to own it and hopefully make a judgment regarding that myself. So that's all of the manga and novels and stuff that I got for this first month of 2024. How has your new year started for you? Not a major amount of manga, but like a good variety of stuff, I would say. A lot of stuff I'm very excited for, and a lot of stuff I'm very appreciative for. I want to thank Starfruit Books again for just being so wonderful and generous of sending me those books. I'm so glad that we've gotten some of those art books, and just like continuing some really fun and interesting series. Let me know what you've been reading. Is there something that's recently released that you think that I should check out? I try to stay on top of the new stuff, but, you know, adulting is very demanding of time, unfortunately. But yeah, let me know if there's anything like super exciting that I haven't gotten yet in this first month. Anything that you've been reading. Have you read any of these titles? Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Otherwise, you can also find me on the one social media, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me there at that's GEE_reads. It's also linked in the description below, as per usual. As well, if you haven't, please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I post a video like this every month about what I get in the month. And hopefully with some commentary that is actually valuable and interesting. I also co-host a podcast with my very good longtime friend, Ray from Whimsical Pictures, where we talk manga all the time, once a month, every month, except for the months that we don't. But almost, well, 5 years now at this point, which is, oh my god, a very long time. And you can find that posted here on this channel. You can also find it on all of the major podcasting platforms. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye till then.